It is just before dawn, and you are standing on the edge of the world. Beneath your feet, white cliffs rise sheer from the dark water, their chalky faces pale against the pre-dawn sky. The air is cold and heavy with salt. To the south, across a stretch of grey water that seems to breathe with the tide, lies the continent, distant and dim. Behind you, the land rolls away into shadow, a vast and unknown country of forests and hills, rivers and fens, places where no Mediterranean traveler has ever set foot. This is Britain, though it does not yet have that name. The year could be 500 before the birth of Christ, or 200, or 50. The precise date does not matter. What matters is that you are here, in the long twilight before Rome, in the centuries when this island was its own world, governed by its own gods, shaped by its own peoples. The Greeks called it the Tin Islands, the Romans would call it Britannia, but to those who live here, it is simply home, a patchwork of tribes and territories, a land of sacred groves and hillforts, of warriors and druids, of stories told by firelight and laws carried in memory. Tonight we will journey into that world. We will walk through forests that stretched unbroken for days. We will stand inside the roundhouses where families gathered against the winter cold. We will climb the great earthwork fortresses that crowned the hills. We will meet the people who lived here, who farmed and fought and worshipped and died long before any Roman legion ever set foot on these shores. This is not a story of conquest, not yet. This is a story of the world that existed before. A world that was rich and complex, connected to the wider currents of Europe yet profoundly its own. A world that the Romans would one day try to erase, but which left traces in the earth that remain to this day. So now let the noise of the modern world fade away. Let go of the present, with its roads and cities and borders. Close your eyes if you wish, and imagine a Britain that is older, stranger, and more beautiful than anything you have been taught. Let us walk together into the deep past, into the age of iron and oak, of mist and memory, of the island no one could conquer until at last someone did. The land itself is the first thing you must understand. Britain, in the centuries before Rome, was not the tamed and parcelled country you might imagine. It was a place of overwhelming green, of forests so dense that sunlight barely touched the ground, of wetlands that spread for miles, reed beds whispering in the wind, shallow waters reflecting the sky. The Great Wildwood, as it is sometimes called, covered much of the lowlands. Oak and ash and elm rose in cathedral stillness, their trunks thick and gnarled, their roots sunk deep into the dark earth. In the north and west, the land climbed into moorland and mountain, places of stone and heather and thin soil, where the wind never stopped and the rain came sideways. In the south and east, the downs rolled gently, open and grassy, scattered with burial mounds older than memory. And everywhere threading through it all were rivers. The Thames, the Severn, the Trent, the Avon, the Ouse, countless smaller streams and brooks. Water was life. It was the easiest way to travel, safer than the forests, faster than the ancient trackways. Rivers connected communities, carried trade, marked boundaries between tribal lands. But they were more than practical. They were sacred. The rivers were gods, or the dwelling places of gods. Entities with names and personalities, to whom offerings were made. Swords and shields, bronze cauldrons, human bones, all were given to the water, consigned to the depths with prayers and hope. Stand beside a river in the late afternoon, when the light is failing and the mist begins to rise. The water moves slowly, dark and cold, its surface broken by the rings of rising fish. The air smells of damp earth and rotting leaves. Somewhere upstream you hear the call of a heron. The trees lean close, their branches forming a tunnel over the water. This is a threshold, a boundary between worlds. You have been told since childhood not to cross certain rivers at certain times, not to speak the names of the dead while standing in the current, not to look too long into the deepest pools where the water turns black and still. Along the river banks, where the ground is firm, small settlements have grown, a cluster of roundhouses, their conical roofs thatched with reeds, their walls of wattle and daub. Smoke rises from the smoke holes, thin and grey. You can hear the lowing of cattle in their enclosures, the distant ring of a hammer on an anvil, the laughter of children playing near the water's edge. But walk away from the river, into the forest, and the world changes. The trees close in, the light dims, the air grows cooler, thick with the scent of moss and fungi. The ground is soft with centuries of leaf mold. You walk carefully, placing your feet where the earth seems solid, avoiding the hidden bogs where a man could sink and never be found. The forest is not empty. There are deer here, shy and fleet, their tracks pressed into the mud. There are boar, dangerous and unpredictable, rooting in the undergrowth. There are wolves, though you rarely see them, only hear their howling at night. And there are people, charcoal burners, their faces blackened, tending slow fires that will turn green wood into fuel. Hunters, moving silently, their bows strung, their eyes sharp. Gatherers, mostly women and children, searching for nuts and berries, mushrooms and herbs, the wild harvest that supplements the cultivated fields. The forest is a resource, but it is also a place of power. Deep within, far from any settlement, are the sacred groves. These are places where no axe has ever fallen, where the trees grow old and strange, their branches tangled, their trunks hollow and vast. Here the druids come to perform their rites, to speak with the gods, to teach the young, to pass judgment on disputes. No one else enters these groves unbidden. To do so is to risk madness, or death, or something worse. The land then is not a blank canvas. It is a living thing, woven through with meaning and memory. Every hill has a name, often the name of a god or a hero, or an ancestor. Every spring is watched over, its water collected for healing or prophecy. Every standing stone, and there are many, weathered and ancient even in this age, marks a place where something happened, something important, though the details have long been forgotten. You are never truly alone here. The land itself is watchful. The people who inhabit this land are as varied as the landscape itself. They are not one nation, not one people. They are a constellation of tribes, each with its own identity, its own kings and queens, its own gods and customs. In the southeast, the Trinovantes and the Catavellauni hold sway, wealthy and powerful, their lands rich and their connections to the continent strong. In the west, the Siliors and the Ordovices cling to the mountains, fierce and independent, their warriors legendary. In the north, the Brigantes control vast territories, a confederation of clans under a single royal house, and there are dozens more. The Asini and the Doboni, the Domani and the Cantiaci, the Cornovi and the Parisi, each with its own story, its own territory, its own pride. These are not primitive people living in squalor. They are farmers and herders, skilled in the cultivation of barley and wheat, the raising of cattle and sheep and pigs. They are craftsmen, working bronze and iron with a mastery that will astonish the Romans when they finally arrive. They are traders, exchanging goods across hundreds of miles, connecting Britain to Gaul and beyond. They are poets and storytellers, their histories and genealogies carried not in writing, which they use sparingly, but in memory, in the long training of the bards who can recite the deeds of ancestors back through 20 generations. Walk into a village on a clear morning in late summer. The harvest is underway. In the fields beyond the settlement, men and women work in lines, cutting the grain with iron sickles, binding the sheaves, stacking them to dry. The work is hard, but there is laughter, conversation, the rhythm of shared labor. Children run between the rows, gleaning the fallen stalks, chasing each other, their voices high and bright. Near the edge of the village, a smith works at his forge. The fire is hot, the air shimmering. He is making a new plowshare, hammering the glowing iron into shape, sparks flying with each blow. His arms are corded with muscle, his face streaked with soot. This is skilled work, almost magical. Iron is a relatively new material, harder and sharper than bronze, but also more difficult to work. A good smith is respected, valued, sometimes feared. His craft is taught in secret, passed from master to apprentice, hedged about with ritual and taboo. The people themselves are striking. Many are tall, with fair or reddish hair, though there is great variety. Some have darker hair and eyes, the legacy of older populations, the people who built the great stone circles and buried their dead in long barrows. Clothing is practical and well made. Wool is the primary fabric, woven on upright looms in the roundhouses, dyed with plants, wode for blue, madder for red, weld for yellow. Men wear tunics and trousers, a practical garment for riding and fighting, though the Romans will later mock it as barbaric. Women wear long dresses, fastened with bronze brooches, often beautifully decorated. Both sexes wear cloaks, heavy and warm, pinned at the shoulder, and there is jewelry. Even the poorest wear some ornament, a simple ring or a clay bead. The wealthy, the nobles and the warriors wear gold. Torques, heavy neck rings of twisted gold, are the mark of status. Bracelets and armlets, finger rings, brooches shaped like animals or abstract swirls, all proclaim identity and rank. Some warriors paint themselves before battle or for ritual occasions. Woad is the most famous, a blue dye made from a plant, applied in patterns to the face and body. But there is also tattooing, permanent marks made with bone needles and charcoal, spirals and knotwork, animal forms, each with meaning. The body is a canvas, a way of speaking without words. Social structure is clear, though not rigid. At the top are the kings and queens, yes, queens, for among many tribes women can inherit power and lead in war. Below them are the nobles, the landowners and the warriors, those who can afford horses and weapons and armor. Below them are the freemen, the farmers and herders, the craftsmen, those who owe service to their lords but are not slaves. And at the bottom are the slaves, taken in war or born into bondage, their lives hard and short. But this is not a static hierarchy. A warrior who distinguishes himself can rise. A family that loses its land can fall. Wealth is measured in cattle, in land, in gold, but also in reputation, in the bonds of loyalty and kinship that tie communities together. You sit that evening, outside a roundhouse, watching the sun set over the fields. The sky is streaked with red and gold. The air is warm, the harvest nearly done. Around you, people are relaxing, talking, mending tools, preparing the evening meal. A woman nurses her baby, singing softly. An old man carves a piece of wood, his knife moving with practiced ease. A group of young men joke and wrestle, testing their strength. This is life. Not simple, not primitive, but human, complex, filled with the same joys and sorrows, hopes and fears, that people have always known. The roundhouse is the heart of domestic life. And to understand this world, you must step inside one. Imagine approaching in the early evening, as the light begins to fade. The house is large, perhaps 40 feet across. Its walls made of upright posts, woven with hazel withies, and daubed with a mixture of clay, dung and straw. The roof is a steep cone of thatch, thick and tightly bound, shedding rain like a bird's wing. There is no chimney, only a small hole at the apex to let the smoke escape. The doorway faces east, toward the rising sun, a common practice, though the reasons are both practical and symbolic. You duck through the low entrance, and the smell hits you first. Smoke, yes, sharp and acrid, but also other scents. The earthy smell of the clay floor, the sweet hay stored in the rafters, the smell of cooking food, the warm animal smell of people living in close quarters. Your eyes adjust slowly to the dimness. The only light comes from the central hearth, a circle of stones set into the floor, where a fire burns low. The smoke rises lazily, spreading through the interior before finding its way out through the roof. Your eyes sting slightly, but the people who live here are used to it. The space is surprisingly warm, the thick thatch insulates well, and the fire never goes out entirely, banked at night, fed through the day. The floor is packed earth, swept clean, covered in places with woven mats or animal hides. The interior is circular, divided not by walls but by use. Around the edge, against the outer wall, are sleeping areas, low platforms of wood or wattle, piled with furs and woolen blankets. Each family member has their place, the hierarchy clear even in sleep. Near the fire, in the place of honor, are the beds of the head of the household and his wife. Beyond them, children, younger adults, perhaps elderly parents or unmarried siblings. At the very edge, near the door, slaves might sleep, if the household is wealthy enough to own any. The center of the house belongs to the hearth. This is where food is cooked, where people gather, where stories are told and decisions are made. A large iron cauldron hangs from a tripod over the fire, simmering with a stew, barley and vegetables and mutton, the smell rich and savory. A woman stirs it occasionally, her face lit by the flames. Nearby, wooden bowls and spoons are stacked, simple and functional. Pottery jars, some locally made, some imported from Gaul, hold grain and salt and dried herbs. Around the hearth, people sit on low stools or on the floor. An older man, perhaps the head of the household, is speaking, his voice low and measured, telling a story or recounting the events of the day. Others listen, occasionally interjecting, asking questions, laughing. A young boy whittles a stick, the shavings falling into the fire where they flare briefly. A girl braids her sister's hair, her fingers quick and sure. The The roof above is a marvel of construction. Long rafters rise from the walls to meet at a central ring beam, the whole structure lashed together with rope and wooden pegs, no nails. In the rafters above the smoke, food is stored. Bundles of dried herbs hang like strange fruit. Baskets of nuts and grain are suspended out of reach of mice. Smoked fish and strips of cured meat dangle on hooks, preserved by the constant smoke. This is the storehouse, the larder, the archive of the harvest. In one corner, away from the fire, is the loom, a tall upright frame with weights hanging from the warp threads. A woman works at it during the day, weaving cloth, the shuttle passing back and forth, the fabric growing slowly, inch by inch. This is slow work, meditative, essential. Every garment worn by the family has been made here, spun and woven and sewn by hand. Near the door, tools are stored. A plough, an axe, a scythe, their blades wrapped in oiled leather to prevent rust. A sword and shield, if the man of the house is a warrior, hung on the wall, ready. Baskets and pottery, wooden buckets and leather sacks, the accumulation of a working life. Nothing is wasted. Everything has its place. As the night deepens, the fire is built up slightly. Someone adds a log, and the flames leap higher, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The old man finishes his story, and there is a moment of silence, appreciative, reflective. Then someone begins a song, low and rhythmic, and others join in. The language is Celtic, a tongue that will evolve into Welsh and Cornish and Breton. But here, in this moment, it is simply the language of home. The children begin to yawn. One by one they are sent to their beds, wrapped in blankets, their small bodies curling into the warmth. The adults remain by the fire a while longer, talking quietly, enjoying the peace. Outside, the night is cold and dark, but inside, there is warmth and light, and the comfort of family. This is the roundhouse, the small world within the larger world, the place where life is lived, day after day, generation after generation. But the roundhouse is not the only architecture that defines this world. Look up to the hills, and you will see something else, something grander and more imposing, the hillforts. These are among the most dramatic monuments of Iron Age Britain, and even today their outlines can be seen, great earthwork ramparts rising in concentric rings around hilltops, enclosing spaces that could hold hundreds, even thousands of people. They are not all the same. Some are small, perhaps just a defended farmstead, a single family's stronghold. Others are vast, like Maiden Castle in Dorset, with its multiple lines of defense, its towering banks and deep ditches, its complex gateways designed to funnel and confuse attackers. These are centers of power, symbols of authority, places where chiefs and kings held court. Imagine climbing toward one of these forts on a grey afternoon in autumn. The wind is cold, cutting across the open hillside. The path is steep, worn by countless feet, winding up between the defensive banks. These banks are not natural. They are the work of generations, thousands of tons of earth and chalk dug from ditches and piled high, faced with timber or stone to prevent erosion. From a distance they look like ripples in the landscape, but up close they are formidable. The outer ditch is deep, perhaps 15 feet, its sides steep and slippery. The bank above it rises another 20 feet, topped with a timber palisade, sharpened stakes angled outward. An attacker would have to descend into the ditch, climb the bank under a hail of sling stones and spears, then breach the palisade, all while defenders rained down death from above. And this is just the first line of defense. Many hill forts have 2, 3, even 4 such ramparts, each one a killing ground. You pass through the gateway, and the scale becomes even more apparent. The entrance is not a simple gap. It is a narrow passage, flanked by massive timber posts, roofed over, creating a tunnel. The sides are faced with stone, carefully fitted, impressive even by later standards. Above you can see the platform where guards would stand, watching, ready. This is architecture designed to intimidate as much as to defend, to proclaim the power of those who built it. Inside the fort, the land levels out. The enclosure is large, several acres, gently sloping. Here life proceeds much as it does in the lowland villages, but with a different atmosphere. There are roundhouses, dozens of them, arranged in rough clusters, each with its own yard, its own enclosures for animals. Smoke rises from cooking fires, children play in the open spaces, women work at grinding grain on stone querns, the sound rhythmic and grating. Men repair fences, sharpen tools, tend to horses. But there is also a sense of order, of organization. This is not a random settlement. It is a community, governed, directed. Near the center of the fort is the chief's house, larger than the others, more finely built. This is where the lord of the hill fort lives, where he holds his feasts, where he dispenses justice. Around it are the houses of his retainers, his warriors, the men who have sworn loyalty to him, who will fight and die at his command. These are professional fighters, or as professional as the age allows, men who train with weapons, who own horses and armor, who live for reputation and glory. Scattered around the enclosure are storage pits, deep cylinders dug into the chalk, lined with clay or wicker. These are used to store grain, thousands of pounds of it, the surplus of the harvest. This is wealth, tangible and vital. A chief who can feed his people through the winter, who can feast his allies and bribe his enemies, is a powerful man. The pits are sealed with clay and thatch, the grain kept dry and dark, ready for when it is needed. There are also workshops, a forge, where the smith works, his fire roaring, his hammer ringing, a potter's shed, where clay vessels are shaped and fired, a weaver's house, where the finest cloth is made. These are specialists, valued members of the community, often supported by the chief, their skills too important to be risked in war. Stand on the rampart in the late afternoon, looking out over the land below. The view is extraordinary. Miles and miles of rolling country, fields and forests, rivers glinting in the distance. You can see other hill forts, on other hills, each one a statement, a claim of territory. These are the high places, the places of power, where the earth touches the sky. From here you can see danger coming from miles away. From here you can signal to allies, lighting great fires that will be answered by other fires on other hills, a network of communication stretching across the land. The hill forts are many things. They are refuges, places where people and animals can retreat in times of war. They are administrative centers, where grain is collected and redistributed, where justice is done, where markets are held. They are symbols visible for miles, proclaiming the presence of a power that cannot be ignored. And they are sacred, many of them, built on hills that were holy long before the ramparts were raised, places where the boundary between earth and sky, between the human world and the world of the gods, is thin. As the sun sets, you descend from the hill fort, walking back down through the defensive banks, out into the open country. Behind you fires begin to glow in the gathering darkness, small points of light on the hilltop. Tomorrow life will continue, the slow rhythm of farming and building, of trade and talk. But tonight the hill fort stands like a crown on the land, a monument to the people who built it and the world they made. To understand the soul of this world, you must turn now to those who stand between the human and the divine, the keepers of knowledge and the speakers with gods, the druids. They are central to Iron Age society, and yet they are also among its most mysterious figures, for they left no written accounts of their own, and what we know of them comes from the words of outsiders, Greek and Roman writers, who observed them with a mixture of fascination and horror. But even through the distorted lens of foreign testimony, a picture emerges of a class of people who wielded immense power, not through force of arms, but through knowledge, memory, and spiritual authority. The druids are not a single order, but a spectrum of roles. There are the priests, who perform the sacrifices and interpret the will of the gods. There are the bards, who preserve the genealogies and histories, who compose praise poems for kings and satires for their enemies, whose words can make or break a reputation. There are the seers, who read omens in the flight of birds, in the entrails of animals, in the movement of clouds. And there are the judges, who settle disputes, who know the law, who can impose fines or exile or death. Some druids fulfill all these roles, others specialize, but all share certain things. They are learned, they are respected, and they are feared. To become a druid requires a commitment that spans decades. A young person, often from a noble family, enters training in childhood or early youth. They will spend 20 years or more in study, learning vast amounts of information by heart. The druids do not write. This is a deliberate choice. Knowledge is sacred, and to commit it to writing would be to profane it, to make it accessible to the unworthy. Instead, everything is memorized. Genealogies stretching back through generations, legal codes governing everything from murder to cattle theft, myths and stories, the deeds of gods and heroes, ritual formulae, the precise words to be spoken at sacrifices, at births, at deaths, astronomical knowledge, the movements of the sun and moon, the calculation of festivals, medical law, which plants heal, which kill, how to set a broken bone, how to staunch a wound. This is a staggering feat of memory, but it is also more than that. It is a way of seeing the world, of understanding that everything is connected, that the past informs the present, that the movements of the heavens reflect the movements of the soul. The sacred groves are the druids' sanctuaries, and they are places of profound power, deep in the forest, far from any settlement. These groves exist in a kind of eternal twilight. The trees here are old, their trunks massive, their branches forming a canopy so thick that rain barely penetrates. The ground is soft with moss, and the air is still, thick with the scent of earth and growing things. No axe has ever touched these trees. To cut them would be sacrilege. Instead, they are venerated, tended, their fallen branches collected for ritual use, their acorns and mistletoe harvested with ceremony. Mistletoe is particularly sacred, especially when it grows on oak, which is rare. The druids harvest it with a golden sickle, cutting it so that it does not touch the ground, catching it in a white cloth. This is done at specific times, calculated according to the moon, accompanied by prayers and offerings. Mistletoe is used in healing, in fertility rites, in the making of potions. It is the plant that grows between earth and sky, rooted in neither, and thus partaking of both. In the groves, the druids perform their most important rites. Sacrifices are made here, offerings to the gods, animals, usually cattle or sheep, slaughtered with a knife, their blood poured onto the ground or into pits, their flesh burned or buried. But the sources also speak of human sacrifice, and while the details are grim and the accounts often sensationalized, there is archaeological evidence that suggests it did occur. Bog bodies, preserved in the peat of wetlands, show signs of ritual death, throats cut, heads bludgeoned, bodies carefully placed. These were not simple murders. They were offerings, perhaps of criminals, perhaps of volunteers, individuals given to the gods in times of crisis, in exchange for favor, for victory, for the turning of fate. The druids preside over these sacrifices. They interpret the death throes of the victim, reading in the convulsions and the flow of blood the answers to questions posed to the gods. It is a dark practice, alien to modern sensibilities, but to the people of this time, it is necessary, a way of maintaining the balance between the human world and the world of spirit. The druids also gather for councils, great assemblies where they debate law, settle disputes between tribes, and make decisions that affect entire regions. These assemblies are neutral ground, sacred, where even enemies can meet without fear of violence. A druid's judgment is binding, backed not by force, but by the threat of spiritual sanction. To defy a druid is to invite the wrath of the gods, to be cursed, to be cut off from the community, to become an exile, a non-person. This is a fate worse than death, for it means separation not only from the living, but from the ancestors, from the possibility of honor or remembrance. The druids are also astronomers and calendar keepers. The Celtic year is divided by the great fire festivals, Samhain, at the end of October, marking the beginning of winter and the new year, Imbolc in early February, the first stirrings of spring, Beltane, at the beginning of May, the start of summer, and the time of fertility, and Log Nasad in early August, the first harvest. These festivals are communal, involving feasting, music, dancing and ritual. The druids determine the exact days, calculate the phases of the moon, ensure that the festivals are held at the correct times. This is vital, for the festivals are moments when the veil between worlds grows thin, when spirits walk, when the dead return to visit the living, when blessings or curses can be sought and won. You stand at the edge of a sacred grove on the night of Samhain. The air is cold, and the darkness is absolute. No moon, only stars. Deep within the grove, fires have been lit, and you can see their glow, flickering between the trees. You can hear voices, low and rhythmic, chanting in a language you do not fully understand, though some of the words are familiar, names of gods, invocations of power. You do not approach, you are not initiated. To enter uninvited would be to court disaster, but you stand and watch, and you feel the presence of something vast and old, something that existed before you were born and will exist long after you are gone. The druids are the keepers of this presence, the mediators between the seen and the unseen, the guides who help their people navigate the great mysteries of life and death, of fortune and fate, of the land and the gods who dwell within it. The art of this world is not mere decoration. It is a language, a way of thinking made visible. Celtic art, as it is known, is unlike anything produced in the Mediterranean. It does not strive for realism, for the faithful reproduction of the human form or the natural world. Instead, it is abstract, flowing, endlessly inventive, full of curves and spirals, of interlocking patterns that seem to shift and move before the eye. It is an art of transformation, where animals merge into one another, where faces appear and disappear within the design, where the boundary between figure and background is deliberately ambiguous. This art is found everywhere. On the great bronze shields carried by warriors, like the Battersea Shield, recovered from the Thames, its surface covered with swirling designs inlaid with red enamel. On the torques worn around the necks of nobles, twisted ropes of gold ending in intricately modeled animal heads. On the mirrors used by the wealthy, their backs engraved with patterns so fine and complex that they seem almost impossible to have been made by hand. On the pottery, the horse harnesses, the scabbards and sword hilts, the brooches and arm rings. Every object of value, and many that are not, is an opportunity for artistry. To hold a bronze torque in your hands is to understand something profound about the people who made it. The metal is heavy, the gold warm even in the cool air. The ends are shaped like stylized bulls' heads, the eyes inlaid with red glass, the horns curving back along the neck ring. The surface is covered with incised patterns, spirals and lozenges, lines that curve and intersect, creating a sense of movement, of energy contained. This is not just a piece of jewelry, it is a statement of identity, of status, of connection to the gods and ancestors. Gold is the metal of the sun, imperishable, divine. To wear gold is to carry a piece of the sacred world into the everyday. The swirling patterns are not random, they follow rules, though the rules are not written and are difficult for outsiders to discern. There are recurring motifs: the triple spiral, the triskele, representing cycles, the threefold nature of the world: life, death, and rebirth. The spiral itself, which appears again and again, a symbol of growth, of journey, of the turning of the seasons. The knotwork, though less common in this early period, suggesting connection, continuity, the interweaving of fate and kin, and animals, always animals, stylized almost beyond recognition: horses and bulls and birds and serpents, creatures of the land and the sky and the water, each with symbolic weight. The creation of these objects is itself a sacred act. The smith who works bronze or iron, the goldsmith who shapes the precious metal, the enameler who fuses glass to metal. These are not merely craftsmen, they are magicians of a sort, transforming raw materials into objects of beauty and power. The smithy is a place of transformation, of fire and hammer, of sparks and smoke. The smith stands at the forge, his face lit by the glow of the coals, his hammer rising and falling, shaping the molten metal, coaxing it into form. This is dangerous work, requiring skill and strength and a kind of intuition, knowing when the metal is hot enough, when it is too hot, when to strike hard, when to be gentle. A mistake can ruin hours of work, or worse, cause injury. But when it is done well, the result is an object that will last for generations, that will be treasured, passed down, perhaps eventually offered to the gods. And there are the great works, the masterpieces that survive to astonish us even now. The Snittersham hoard, discovered in Norfolk, a collection of gold and silver torques, some weighing over 2 pounds, their surfaces decorated with extraordinary skill. The Desborough mirror, its back engraved with a design so complex that modern scholars have spent years trying to understand its geometry. The Battersea Shield, already mentioned, its surface a symphony of curves and swirls. These objects were not made for battle or for everyday use. They were made to impress, to awe, to convey the wealth and power of their owners. They were made to be seen, to be displayed at feasts and festivals, to be given as gifts to cement alliances, to honor the gods. But there is also art in the everyday. The simple clay pot, its rim decorated with impressed patterns, made with a twisted cord or a carved stick. The wooden bowl, its surface polished smooth, its grain glowing in the firelight. The woven textile, its pattern of checks and stripes created by the careful arrangement of dyed threads. This is the art of the home, of the hands that shape and make, that find beauty in function, that refuse to accept that utility and aesthetics must be separate. You sit in a roundhouse in the evening, holding a drinking cup, a simple vessel of fired clay, but it is not featureless. Around the rim runs a band of incised lines, forming a zigzag pattern. It is a small thing, this decoration, taking only a few moments to add, but it transforms the cup from a mere container into something that pleases the eye, that speaks of care and attention. This too is art. This too is part of the visual language of the world. The people of Iron Age Britain saw the world as alive, as full of patterns and connections, and their art reflects this. It is not art that you stand back from and admire at a distance. It is art that you hold, that you wear, that you use. It is art that surrounds you, that is woven into the fabric of daily life. It is art that speaks of a worldview where the sacred and the mundane are not separate, where beauty is not a luxury but a necessity, a way of honoring the gods and the ancestors, a way of proclaiming in metal and clay and thread that this world, this fleeting life, is worth celebrating. Britain was never isolated, and to imagine it as a remote island cut off from the wider world is to misunderstand it entirely. For centuries before Rome, Britain was connected by trade to Europe, to the Mediterranean, to cultures and economies hundreds of miles away. The island's most valuable export was tin, mined in Cornwall and Devon, essential for the making of bronze. Tin was a rare commodity, and Britain was one of the few places in the known world where it could be found in significant quantities. The trade routes were ancient, well established, following rivers and trackways, connecting the mines of the southwest to the ports of the south coast and the Thames estuary. Imagine following one of these routes. You begin in the far west, in Cornwall, where the land is rugged and the sea is always near. The mines are not deep shafts, not yet, but shallow workings, stream beds where the tin-bearing ore has been washed down from the hills, or open pits where the rock is broken and crushed. The work is hard, done by hand with picks and hammers, the ore carried in baskets to be washed and sorted. The tin is smelted on site, the ore heated in simple furnaces, the molten metal poured into ingots, rough bars stamped with marks identifying their source. These ingots are then loaded onto pack animals or carts and begin their journey eastward. The route follows the high ground where possible, avoiding the dense forests of the valleys. Ancient trackways, their surfaces worn smooth by generations of use, wind across the downs and moors. You pass through tribal territories, each with its own customs, its own lords. At certain points tolls are paid, a portion of the cargo handed over in exchange for safe passage. At night you stop at settlements, small trading posts where travelers are expected, where food and shelter can be had for a price. As you move east, the landscape changes. The open moors give way to rolling farmland, then to the great river valleys. The Thames is the key, a broad highway of water that flows from the heart of the country to the sea. Here at ports like what will one day be London, but is now just a cluster of settlements along the riverbank, the tin is transferred to boats, shallow draft vessels that can navigate the river and cross the channel. And from across the channel, other goods arrive. Wine from Gaul and the Mediterranean, transported in large pottery vessels called amphorae, their narrow necks sealed with wax or pitch. The wine is a luxury, drunk by the wealthy, a symbol of status and sophistication. Olive oil, another Mediterranean import, used for cooking, for lighting lamps, for anointing the body. Fine pottery, red gloss Samian ware, wheel-thrown and decorated, far superior to the hand-built pottery made in Britain. Glass beads and bracelets, shimmering with color, made in workshops along the Rhine or in Italy. Bronze vessels, finely crafted, used for serving food and drink at feasts. And iron, though Britain has its own iron, sometimes imported in the form of tools or weapons, or as raw material. The traders who facilitate this exchange are cosmopolitan figures. Many are Gaulish, speakers of Celtic languages closely related to those spoken in Britain, able to move easily between the two worlds. Some are Greek or Phoenician, venturers from the Mediterranean, following the ancient trade routes to the edge of the known world. These men are wealthy, their ships and their goods representing enormous investments. They are also brave, for the sea is dangerous, and so are the people they deal with. Piracy is a constant threat, so is the possibility of being cheated, of receiving inferior goods, of being robbed by the very people they came to trade with. You stand on the beach at a port in the southeast, watching as a ship is unloaded. It is a broad-beamed merchant vessel, its single square sail furled, its crew working quickly to move the cargo ashore. amphorae are being carried up the beach, dozens of them, each one heavy and awkward. A crowd has gathered, locals curious to see what has arrived, merchants negotiating prices, nobles inspecting the goods. A Gaulish trader, his Latin fluent, haggles with a British chief. Gold changes hands, or cattle, or slaves, for this is a currency too. Human beings taken in war, or born into bondage, sold across the water to work in the mines and farms of Gaul. The exchange is not just economic, it is cultural. The British nobles who drink Mediterranean wine at their feasts, who dress in imported textiles, who display foreign pottery in their homes, are making a statement. They are proclaiming their sophistication, their connection to a wider world, their distance from the common farmer or herder, and in turn, they are being influenced. Ideas travel with goods, new technologies, new fashions, new beliefs. The pottery wheel arrives in Britain from the continent, revolutionizing ceramic production. New styles of brooches and ornaments appear, blending continental designs with local traditions. Even the language begins to change, absorbing loan words from Latin and Gaulish. But the exchange is not one way. British goods travel south, tin of course, but also hunting dogs, prized for their speed and ferocity, slaves, grain, when there is a surplus, wool and hides, and perhaps less tangible things, stories, songs, the bardic tradition that will later influence the literatures of Ireland and Wales and Brittany. Trade also brings knowledge. British nobles send their sons to be educated in Gaul, where they learn Latin, where they see Roman cities, where they absorb the customs and values of the Mediterranean world. When they return, they bring new ideas, and these ideas begin to reshape British society, creating tensions between the old ways and the new, between those who see the Romans as models to be emulated, and those who see them as threats to be resisted. As you watch the ship being unloaded, you realize that Britain is not a backwater. It is a participant in a vast network of trade and exchange that stretches from the Atlantic to the Aegean, from the Baltic to the Sahara. The island is valuable precisely because of what it produces and where it is located. It is the edge of the world, but it is also a bridge, a point of contact between the Celtic north and the Roman south, and that position will shape its destiny in the years to come. To speak of Iron Age Britain without speaking of war would be to tell only half the story. Violence is woven into the fabric of life, not constant, not overwhelming, but always present, a fact to be reckoned with. Warfare is not the mechanized slaughter of later ages. It is personal, ritualized, governed by codes of honor and obligation. It is about reputation, about the proving of courage, about the settling of feuds and the seizing of cattle and slaves. And it is about the warrior, the man, and sometimes woman, who dedicates their life to the mastery of arms, who seeks glory on the battlefield, who lives by the sword and expects to die by it. The warrior class is the aristocracy of this world. To be a warrior is to be free, to be respected, to be feared, but it is also to be bound by duty, by oaths of loyalty to a lord, by the expectations of kin and community. A warrior's wealth is measured not just in gold, but in weapons and armor, in horses, and in the retinue of younger men who look to him for leadership and training. A successful warrior can rise to become a lord himself, can gather followers, can carve out territory. A failed warrior, one who survives defeat or dishonor, is a figure of pity or contempt, shunned, exiled, erased from memory. The weapons are both practical and symbolic. The sword is the weapon of the elite, expensive to make, requiring great skill from the smith. An iron sword, well forged, with a blade that can hold an edge and bend without breaking, is a treasure, often given a name, passed down through generations, an object with its own history and power. The blade is long, straight, designed for slashing rather than thrusting. The hilt is bound with leather or wood, the pommel often decorated, sometimes inlaid with enamel or set with a precious stone. To carry a sword is to mark oneself as a warrior, as someone who has the right and the duty to fight. The spear is more common, the weapon of the freeman and the warrior alike. It is simpler to make, a long shaft of ash or oak tipped with an iron point, but it is no less deadly. A thrown spear can strike from a distance. A thrusting spear, used in close combat, can punch through armor, can kill with a single blow. Spears are carried by the hundreds in any battle, their points glinting, their shafts held high. The shield is essential. It is not the small round buckler of later periods, but a large oval or rectangular shield, made of wood, faced with leather, often reinforced with a central iron boss. The shield is painted, decorated with symbols, the mark of a tribe or a family or a personal emblem. In battle, shields are locked together, forming a wall, a barrier against spears and slings and arrows. To lose your shield is to lose your protection, and in some cultures, it is considered shameful, a mark of cowardice. The war chariot is uniquely British, a weapon that astonishes the Romans when they finally encounter it. The chariot is light, built for speed, pulled by 2 horses, driven by a skilled charioteer with a warrior standing beside him. The warrior carries javelins, which he hurls at the enemy as the chariot races past. When he has thrown his spears, the chariot wheels away. The warrior leaps down to fight on foot, and the charioteer waits nearby, ready to extract him if things go badly. This is a tactic that requires immense skill, both from the horses, which must be trained to charge and wheel and stop on command, and from the men, who must be athletes as much as fighters, able to balance on a moving platform, to throw with accuracy, to leap and run and fight without pause. Training begins in childhood. Boys are taught to ride, to handle weapons, to wrestle and run and swim. They are taught the stories of heroes, the great battles of the past, the codes of honor. They learn that courage is the highest virtue, that death in battle is glorious, that to flee is to be shamed forever. They are formed into a warrior culture, where reputation is everything, where a man's worth is measured by his deeds, by the enemies he has killed, by the scars he carries. Battle, when it comes, is chaotic and terrifying. Imagine standing in a line of warriors, your shield locked with those of the men beside you, your spear gripped tight, your heart pounding. The enemy is 100 yards away, a mass of men, shields, spears, their war cries filling the air. Both sides are shouting, hurling insults, boasting of their prowess, invoking their gods. The tension is unbearable. Then the charge. The 2 lines rush toward each other, closing the distance in seconds. The clash is deafening, the sound of wood on wood, iron on iron, the screams of the wounded, the shouting of commands. The line bends, buckles, holds. Men push forward, trying to break through, to find an opening. Spears thrust, seeking flesh. Swords rise and fall. The ground becomes slick with blood. The fighting is exhausting, the adrenaline overwhelming. Minutes feel like hours. And then suddenly, one side breaks. The shield wall collapses, men turn and run, and the victors pursue, cutting down the fleeing enemy, showing no mercy. This is the reality of battle, brutal and swift, decided not by grand tactics but by courage and stamina, by the willingness to stand and fight when every instinct screams to flee. But not all warfare is like this. Much of it is smaller in scale, more personal. Cattle raids are common, a way for young warriors to prove themselves, to gain wealth and reputation. A small band of men will cross into enemy territory at night, moving silently, avoiding settlements, seeking the herds. They will drive the cattle back across the border, moving quickly, knowing that pursuit is likely. If they are caught, there will be a fight, short and savage. If they escape, they will return to their own land as heroes. The cattle distributed according to status, the leader taking the largest share. There are also duels, single combat between champions, fought to settle disputes without the need for larger battles. These are formal affairs, governed by ritual, witnessed by both sides. The warriors strip to the waist, or fight naked, displaying their strength and fearlessness. They fight with swords or spears, sometimes to the death, sometimes to first blood. The victor gains honor, the loser, if he survives, is shamed. Sometimes the outcome of a battle is decided by such a duel, both sides agreeing to abide by the result, to spare the bloodshed of a general engagement. War is also a time of feasting and boasting. After a victory, the warriors gather in the Lord's Hall, the roundhouse filled with firelight and noise. Meat is roasted, mead and ale flow freely. The warriors tell stories of the battle, exaggerating their own deeds, mocking the enemy, praising their comrades. The bards compose songs, immortalizing the victory, ensuring that it will be remembered. This is as important as the fighting itself, for what is glory if it is not remembered, if it does not live on in song and story? You stand on a hillside at dusk, watching as warriors return from a raid. They are tired, their clothes stained, their faces drawn, but they are also exultant. They drive a herd of cattle before them, 20 head, a good haul. The chief rides at their head, his sword sheathed, his shield slung across his back. The people of the settlement come out to meet them, cheering, asking for news. The warriors dismount, embrace their families, begin to tell their stories. This is life. This is what it means to be a warrior in Iron Age Britain, to live on the edge of violence, to seek honor and glory, to accept that death may come at any moment, but that if it comes in battle, it will be met with courage and remembered with pride. Now the world begins to change. The rumor comes first, carried by traders, by travelers, by refugees fleeing from Gaul. There is a new power in the south, a power unlike any the world has seen. Rome. The name itself is still unfamiliar, the syllables strange on Celtic tongues, but the stories are growing. Stories of vast armies, of cities of stone, of roads that run straight for hundreds of miles, of laws written down and enforced with brutal efficiency. The tribes of Gaul are falling, one by one, to the legions of a general named Julius Caesar, and he is looking north, across the narrow sea, toward Britain. It is the summer of 55 BC, when the first Roman ships appear. They come suddenly, without warning, their sails visible on the southern horizon, growing larger, resolving into a fleet of transport vessels packed with soldiers. The people of the coastal settlements watch in disbelief. They have heard the stories, but stories are one thing. This is real. The ships beach themselves on the shingle, and the legionaries pour out, shields locked, javelins ready, moving in perfect formation. The British warriors gather to meet them, chariots racing along the beach, warriors shouting their defiance, but the Romans are disciplined, relentless. They form a line, advance, throw their javelins in a coordinated volley that tears through the British ranks. The fighting is brief and brutal. The Britons, brave but disorganized, are driven back. Caesar himself stands on the deck of his command ship, watching, calculating. He has no intention of staying. This is a raid, a reconnaissance, a demonstration of Roman power. He wants to see the island, to gauge its defenses, to remind the British tribes that Rome is near. After a few days of skirmishing, the fleet withdraws, sailing back to Gaul. But the message is clear. Rome has noticed Britain. The following year, Caesar returns, this time with a larger force. The landings are opposed, but the Romans push inland, crossing rivers, storming hill forts. They fight pitched battles against British confederations, and each time, Roman discipline and tactics prevail. The Britons use their chariots, their mobility, their knowledge of the terrain, but it is not enough. The legions are a machine, grinding forward, relentless. Caesar captures a major oppidum, a fortified settlement, takes hostages from several tribes, exacts tribute, and then once again withdraws. Britain is not conquered. It is too far, too difficult, and Caesar has other concerns. The civil wars in Rome, the struggle for power, but the island has been touched, and it will never be quite the same. In the wake of Caesar's expeditions, the relationship between Britain and Rome shifts. Some tribes, particularly in the southeast, see the wisdom of accommodation. They send embassies to Rome, seeking alliances, trading privileges, protection. They begin to adopt Roman customs, to import Roman goods in increasing quantities. They mint coins imitating Roman designs, with Latin inscriptions, the names of their kings stamped in the letters of a foreign alphabet. Their leaders are invited to visit Rome, where they are dazzled by the grandeur of the city, the scale of the buildings, the wealth on display. They return home changed, convinced that the future lies in cooperation with Rome, in becoming part of the empire, in sharing in its prosperity. But others resist. Tribes in the west and north, further from Roman influence, see accommodation as betrayal. They fortify their hill forts, gather their warriors, make alliances among themselves. They remember the old gods, the old ways, the independence that has defined their world for as long as memory runs. They will not bow to Rome. They will fight, if they must, to the last. The island is dividing, not yet conquered, but already fractured, pulled in two directions by the gravity of a power that has not even fully arrived. You stand in a market town in the southeast, watching as a merchant unloads his wares. Among the usual goods, the pottery and the wine, there are new things. A bronze statue of a Roman god, small, finely made, a set of iron tools, forged in a Roman style, a bolt of cloth, finer than anything woven locally, and a book, a wooden tablet, covered with wax, inscribed with Latin words. You do not read, but you recognize the letters, have seen them on coins. The merchant is enthusiastic, speaking of the wonders of Roman civilization, of the peace and prosperity that come with Roman rule. Some listen eagerly, others turn away, muttering, "The world is changing, and no one knows what will come next." In the decades between Caesar's raids and the full-scale invasion under Claudius, life in Britain continues, but with an undercurrent of change and tension. These are the years from 54 BC to 43 AD, nearly a century in which the island exists in a kind of twilight, neither fully independent nor yet conquered, caught between two worlds. For the ordinary farmer, the herder, the craftsman, life proceeds much as it always has. The seasons turn. The grain is sown in spring and harvested in autumn. Cattle are driven to summer pastures and brought back to the settlements in winter. Children are born, grow, marry, have children of their own. The old die and are buried with the rites their ancestors knew. The roundhouse remains the center of life. The hearth still burns. The stories are still told, but there are changes, subtle at first, then more pronounced. Roman goods flood the market. Amphorae of wine are no longer a rare luxury, but a common sight at the feasts of even moderately wealthy families. Fine pottery, Samian ware with its distinctive red gloss, appears in settlements across the south. Bronze mirrors, glass beads, silver brooches, all imports, all signs of a growing taste for the products of the empire. And with the goods come ideas, fashions, new ways of thinking. Some British kings begin to build in the Roman style. Mud and timber are replaced, at least in the chief's quarters, with stone. Tiled roofs appear, a marvel of engineering, waterproof and durable. Floors are paved with mosaics, tiny tiles of colored stone, arranged in geometric patterns or pictures of gods and heroes. These are imitations, British versions of Roman luxury, but they are impressive nonetheless, a sign that the old ways are giving ground to the new. Coinage becomes more widespread. Before it was limited, used mostly for large transactions, for paying mercenaries for trade with the continent. Now coins circulate more freely, stamped with the images of British kings, but also with Latin inscriptions, claiming titles like Rex or Filius, son of, linking themselves to lineages both real and invented. This is the monetization of the economy, the shift from a system based on barter and obligation to one based on cash and contracts. It is a profound change, reshaping relationships, creating new forms of wealth and power. The tribes of the southeast are drawing closer to Rome. Embassies travel back and forth, treaties are signed. In some cases, British kings acknowledge Roman suzerainty, agreeing to pay tribute, to provide troops, to follow Roman policy. In return, they receive recognition, support, sometimes direct military aid. Rome uses these client kings as a buffer, as a way of controlling the island without the expense of full occupation. But it is a fragile arrangement, dependent on personalities, on shifting alliances, on the willingness of the British to accept a subordinate status. In the west and north, things are different. Here, Roman influence is weaker, resented. The old ways are stronger, the druids more powerful, the resistance to change more fierce. These tribes watch the southeast with suspicion, seeing the adoption of Roman customs as a loss of identity, a betrayal of ancestors. They raid the pro-Roman tribes, driving off cattle, burning settlements, asserting their independence. The island is not at peace. Skirmishes and small wars are constant. The map of tribal territories shifts. Allegiances change. Power ebbs and flows. You walk through a settlement in the Midlands on a bright autumn morning. The harvest is in, the granaries are full, and there is a sense of plenty, of security. But there is also a tension, a sense that the world is balanced on a knife's edge. A group of warriors is drilling in an open field, their movements coordinated, disciplined in a way that reminds you of the stories of Roman soldiers. Their leader is a young noble, recently returned from Gaul, where he studied under a Roman officer. He is trying to train his men in Roman tactics, to turn them into something like legionaries. Some of the older warriors watch with disapproval, muttering that this is not the way of their ancestors, that a true warrior fights with courage and skill, not with rote drills and formations. But the young noble is insistent. He has seen the future, and it is Rome. Near the center of the settlement, a new building is under construction. It is rectangular, not round. Its walls of stone, not wattle and daub. It will have a tiled roof, glass windows, a hypocaust for heating. This is a Roman-style villa, the first in this region, a sign that the old elite is adopting new forms, new ways of displaying wealth and power. The workers are local, but the design is foreign, the architect a Greek from the continent. The building looks alien, out of place, a stone intruder in a world of timber and thatch, but it is also impressive, undeniably so, and you cannot help but wonder what it will be like inside, what it will mean to live in such a place. As the years pass, the sense of impending change grows stronger. Traders bring news of events in Rome, of emperors and wars, of the vast machinery of empire grinding on. In AD 41, the emperor Caligula is assassinated, and his uncle Claudius takes the throne. Claudius is a scholar, a historian, a man who seems an unlikely military leader, but he needs a triumph, a victory to secure his position, to prove himself to the legions and the Senate, and so he turns his eyes toward Britain, the island that Caesar touched but did not take, the conquest that will be his legacy. Preparations begin. Legions are assembled in Gaul, ships are built, supplies are stockpiled. The news trickles across the channel, carried by spies, by merchants, by deserters. In Britain, the tribes scramble to prepare. Those allied with Rome reassure their people, promising that the legions come as friends, as protectors. Those opposed gather their warriors, repair the defenses of their hill forts, send out calls for alliances. The druids, sensing the danger to their way of life, preach resistance, calling on the gods, invoking the old curses, promising victory to those who fight and doom to those who submit. In the spring of AD 43, the invasion begins. The Roman fleet crosses the channel, and this time it does not withdraw. The legions land in force, thousands upon thousands of disciplined soldiers, their armor gleaming, their standards flying. They establish a beachhead, build fortifications, and begin the slow, methodical conquest of the island. The battles are fierce, but ultimately one-sided. The British fight bravely, their chariots wheeling, their warriors hurling themselves against the Roman lines, but courage is not enough. The legions advance, mile by mile, week by week, and the old world begins to fall. You stand on a hillside, watching the smoke rise from a burning settlement in the valley below. The Romans have passed through, their march relentless, unstoppable. Around you refugees gather, their faces blank with shock, their possessions bundled in their arms. An old woman weeps, her voice raw. A child clings to his mother, silent, wide-eyed. The world is ending, or so it seems. The age of the druids and the hill forts, and the sacred groves, giving way to the age of stone roads and written laws, and the eagle standards of Rome. And yet, even in this moment of despair, life goes on. People endure, adapt, survive. The island will be conquered, yes, but it will not be erased. The old ways will persist, hidden, transformed, woven into the fabric of the new world that is being born. And so we come to the end of our journey, to the moment when the old world fades and the new one begins. The conquest is not instant. It will take decades, and some parts of the island will never be fully subdued. But the critical moment has passed. Britain is becoming Britannia. The island is being drawn into the empire, and the age before Rome is ending. What remains? In the earth, a great deal. The hill forts stand silent, their ramparts grass-covered, their ditches filled with leaves and thyme. You can walk them still, these great earthworks, and feel the scale of what was built, the labor and the vision. Maiden Castle in Dorset, with its towering defenses. Danebury in Hampshire, its interior excavated to reveal the post holes of hundreds of roundhouses. The storage pits, the evidence of a community that thrived for centuries. Old Sarum, Cadbury Castle, the Wrekin, dozens more, scattered across the landscape, each one a monument to the people who built them and the world they defended. In the rivers and bogs, offerings still lie, buried in the peat, or sunk in the mud. Archaeologists have recovered swords and shields, cauldrons and torques, even human remains, the bog bodies with their ropes and wounds, their final moments preserved in the airless dark. These are the voices of the past, speaking to us across the millennia, telling us that this world was real, that these people lived and believed and hoped and feared. In the museums, the art survives, the bronze mirrors and the golden torques, the intricately decorated shields, the coins stamped with the names of forgotten kings. Hold one of these objects in your mind's eye, trace the spirals with your gaze, and you are touching the mind of the maker, understanding, however dimly, the aesthetic and the worldview that shaped it. This is not primitive art. This is sophisticated, deliberate, beautiful, the product of a culture that valued beauty as much as strength, that saw the world as a place of pattern and meaning. In the language, traces remain, place names, particularly in the west and north, preserve Celtic words. Rivers bear their ancient names, the Avon, simply river, the Thames perhaps dark or smooth. The Welsh language and Cornish and Breton are the descendants of the tongues spoken in Iron Age Britain, carrying forward the grammar and vocabulary, the stories and the poems, the living echo of a vanished world. And in the stories, the myths and legends that were written down centuries later, there are fragments of the old beliefs. The tales of King Arthur, which will be composed in the Middle Ages, contain echoes of Iron Age kingship, of warrior bands, of sacred objects and quests. The myths of the Mabinogion, the Irish sagas, all preserve motifs and themes that reach back into the deep past, to a time before writing, when the druids kept the stories in their memories, and passed them down through generations. The world we have walked through tonight is gone, yes, but it is not forgotten. It lives on in the landscape, in the objects pulled from the earth, in the words we speak, in the stories we tell. It lives on in the knowledge that Britain, before it was ever Britannia, was a place of complexity and beauty, of people who built and made and fought and worshipped, who lived fully human lives, who shaped the land and were shaped by it. Rome conquered Britain, but it did not erase it. The old ways persisted, underground, in the countryside, in the practices of farmers and the prayers of those who remembered. And when Rome itself fell, when the legions withdrew and the cities crumbled, it was the descendants of the Iron Age tribes who remained, who picked up the pieces, who built new kingdoms on the ruins of the old. The Britons, as they came to be called, the people who would give their name to the island, they were the inheritors of this deep past, and their story too is part of the story we have told tonight. We have stood on the white cliffs and looked out over the water. We have walked through forests and climbed hill forts. We have sat by the fire in the roundhouse and listened to the druids chant in the sacred groves. We have held the bronze talk and traced its spirals. We have watched the traders unload their ships and the warriors ride out to battle. We have felt the tension of a world on the edge of change, the fear and the hope, the resistance and the accommodation. This has been the island no one could conquer, until, at last, someone did. And in that conquest, in that meeting of worlds, something new was born. Something that would shape the future, that would ripple forward through the centuries into the present day. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the deep past. Our story fades now, as all stories must, but the echoes remain, in the earth, and in the air, in the hills, and in the rivers, in the blood, and in the memory. Rest well, and dream of ancient forests and distant firelight, of warriors and druids, of the island that was, and the world that will never come again. Until we meet again, may you sleep peacefully, and may the past, with all its beauty and its strangeness, walk gently through your dreams. Good night.